Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Scots Way Hey podcast. And today I'm joined by rapper, poet, and songwriter Conscious Root. Hello.
Hi, how's it going? Can you
It's,
hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. Sound
Oh,
good
good.
to me.
Good,
So
good.
that introduction really only scratches the surface of your musical life. You've been in bands, you've worked as a solo artist, as you are now, but not only in hip hop and other kind of music styles as well. Can you give us a bit of background into your life in music?
Okay, so I guess it started off maybe, I think it started off in the beginning just singing in some choirs when I was young at school. And then I kind of stopped that around my pre-teens or 13, 12, 13, when my voice broke and walking in the wasn't sounding as appealing. um, and I kind of I was into listening to a lot of hip hop. I wasn't doing hip hop. And then um, I think the first thing was like when the drum and bass, or when the hardcore movement was there, and it started to split into kind of genres like D&B, like drum and bass and hard step and that. I was like really listening to Kiss 100, DJ I, and just all those people that were coming up at that time, like Adam F and Andy C. I was just banging to the D&B, and I think that kind of kicked off the MCing thing, because I was like, it was a different kind of MCing, and at that time, it wasn't as lyrical as hip hop is. So there was a bit of a transition period for me moving into hip hop from drum and bass, because it was actually so complex. And I found the rhyming in drum and bass was like much more kind of simplistic. It was like off the top, it was like, what you're going to do, coming on the mic styles, coming through and all that sort of thing. It's just like so easy compared to hip hop, sort of the way the structure of rhymes is so much more complex. So it took me a little while to get my head around that, and I think I was probably about 18 when I started kind of writing hip hop properly. 19 when I was kind of maybe releasing some stuff early on, 1920 probably. Yeah, started releasing some hip hop. And then that experience, alongside, I was in a studio with a lot of different producers who, this was down south in England, in the His Nizzy, as it was called, in the countryside. And in between London and Cambridge, to give you a bit of a reference, in Hertfordshire. And one of the guys in there a couple of guys used to make like deep house. So sometimes they used to get me to do some vocals for some bits and bobs. And so that kind of got me doing a little bit of stuff on house music. And then the hip hop stuff that I'd done with this guy, and there was another rapper called Filler or Gareth. We worked together in a crew called Fugazi Rum, and then later on that turned into like a 6-piece blues and hip hop band, and we wrote an album called it was supposed to be called the Red Album, but it got released as Fugazi Rum. And like me, the singer songwriter Ben Smith, he's now in an outfit called Ben and Brewery, something like that. They're doing okay, like in the UK and stuff. So he was like the frontman singer, and he played guitar and some bass on the project. And Huss, who was the producer, he produced the beats, done some other bits of production on the project that was missing, and I was writing some raps, and I wrote a little bit for the singer sometimes as well as writing some of my bars, and a bit vice versa. I think sometimes like Huss might write, he wrote one of the songs, and I ended up kind of like rapping it live anyway. I think he formed it on an album. So that project was pretty fun. And it opened that kind of, I think I went down a tunnel then of like live music, and kind of maybe disconnected a bit from that raw hip hop
Mhm.
theme, you know? But it was cool. I think it was a good learning direction. I spent 6 years with that band, and we were kind of, you know, we done some good stuff. You know, we got played on like BBC Radio Cambridgeshire, One Extra, um, Three Counties Radio, and we were doing a lot of festivals and gigging like kind of all over the UK and stuff. But you know, band politics. The music was great. The idea was great, but the politics was not, as in bands. So it just kind of sort of come to an end because I think we were too pushed to trying to get a record deal rather than just making the good music that we were making. And I guess we lost a bit of sight honing the sound to that, to everyone else's expectations rather than making the good music that we were making. So
Sounds like right from the early days, you've been music has been such an integral part of your life, and as you've gone along to what you've told us so far, you're kind of learning as you go. It's a kind of constant education, as you like. Is that how you found it?
yeah, yeah, and I do think it is like there's not a thing that it's funny how much it's like I'm thinking that this happens a lot in life, that you learn something and you think that's really good, and then somewhere along the journey you forget that important learning.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's been some, even now when I look at my approach to music, and almost there's things that I feel that I should have learned like years ago that I'm only just learning now. and and I'm not sure about the should judgment. um but it's just like simple things like giving myself time to, you know, I write a song, giving myself time to really get that flow tight, before I think about going to the studio, and really kind of, you know, honing, you know, the music in itself, and like just fine tuning the meaning, fine tuning the lyrical and the musical sound, and then sort of then, you know, recording a rough version, and then going back 2 3 weeks later and then putting down a final version. Like, this is stuff that I do now, which I should have been doing, I feel, before. And I don't know where I kind of like lost translation, where I'm kind of, I don't know, turning up to the studio not quite got what I'm, you know, trying to work out where I'm going in the direction of the song and stuff like that. I kind of think it's like there's been a bit of poor educating on my own part, sometimes, to my development.
Has it been like being prepared? Like perhaps you think right now it's time to record something, but then it's only when you're in you realize, well, maybe I haven't done the preparation. That's
Yeah, I think sometimes it's like I don't know. I guess sometimes it's just like when you're doing things on different levels, and then you have a certain maybe process of working. So I think when we were doing the stuff with the band, Fugazi Rum first project, a lot of it was like we were spot writing and then just recording stuff, you know. So it's almost got like, if you listen, I'm not sure if you've heard the Fugazi Rum album,
no,
the
I
Red
haven't.
album. Well, I'll hook you up. I'll hook my boy up. It's good. It's a really nice. It's a timeless piece of work. Like, and I still listen to it now, and you can check some live stuff online, and it's just
Excellent.
good stuff. Like, so, um, and I guess it just had that really kind of vintage, you know, almost like that early Wu-Tang sound, or that early kind of, you know, blues sound, where it was all very like, it wasn't trying to be sparkly. It was
Right.
trying to be what it was. But you can hear almost the imperfection, but the imperfection suits it. Do you know
It's
what I
rough
mean?
around the edges, that side to it.
Yeah, that kind of, and it's funny because we recorded the album very like roughly in a flat. And I remember like one time we were in the bathroom recording this bit, and we used this kind of panel of the bathroom. We were banging it. It was an old kind of blues sound, like just getting this kind of bass, using it as a bass drum, and it just sounded like great. Like it, you know, this very like, it just sounded great, man. Um, but it was just things like that. So I think I went from from that kind of, and it's not like I didn't write songs and then have a bit of time maybe getting what it was. I think maybe at some points I did get that, and then that's what I mean. I feel like I lost something that was that I'd learned. that was about, you know, you need to take more time when you're writing your art, and just give it more space to breathe and let it become the song, rather than thinking, you know, you've written some lyrics and that's the song.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the kind of thing that I'm kind of thinking about now.
And being in the band, and you talk about the politics, did you find actually being in a collective like that, you had less time to concentrate on all of that thing, and that's one of the good things about working on your own?
Yeah, I think you know, I love the learning I've got from being in bands. I think it's been great, but also you do, like, for a rapper in a band, if you're not like, I mean, I was one of frontmen in that. It was me, there was Ben, and sometimes I'd just rap and he might do a bit of a hook, and sometimes we'd be like, you know, going back and forth sharing. There's loads of different ways that we were kind of approaching it. Um, but I'd say I became an instrument more than a lyricist. So it wasn't like I stopped writing any good lyrics, but the lyrics were different because the kind of music was different. So it wasn't as raw as the lyrics that I started out doing as a raw hip hop guy. But I feel like I was really raw then. Like in life, I was really raw. Like life was raw, and there'd been a lot of change when I went into the blues stuff. So you know, like I think music and life have a bit of a parallel with where we are and what we write, and the kind of stuff that we do. So I can connect all of that, maybe.
And you've been working more recently with producer Tzusan on Father and Son, which I think is your most recent release.
Yeah.
What's that been like, and how does that collaboration work?
I mean, Susan, to Susan, or Suzanne, whatever.
How do you say it?
I don't know. I kind of say to Susan, but I think it's Susan. It's a cheeky name. Such a cool guy. If I've ever met, I'm sure he's like the Edinburgh version of the Fonz. You know what I mean? He's just so horizontal. But yeah, just such a talented beat maker and artist. I met him when he was about 18, and he was just coming up as a rapper. And I think I hooked him up in the studio around Words to record his first track, and it just blew me away. He's such a talented guy, and he hasn't stopped, obviously. And I think his potential now is just starting to come through, and that's not even half of what he's probably capable of, you know, as an artist. So I mean, it's really nice that he still appreciates, because I think who like he likes as an artist is different to me, like my art. I think he respects me as an artist, but I'm probably not his go-to. So I think what happened originally, like I'd written those lyrics to another beat, and the beat that I wrote to, the guy, there was some troubles with kind of like the guy had been selling the beat to many people. So I was just like, I don't want to release something that's going to be, you know, I want to do something that was exclusive. So I hit Jacob up, or to Susan, and I was just like, can you know, you get an instrumental for me with this track, and we'll do this collab and put this out. And he was cool with that. So it was just a quick thing, really. For me, it was like, well, quite a turnaround. Um,
And what about the track itself, Father and Son? How does, in terms of, how you approach writing, how did that reflect that?
I guess the writing of father and son, it's kind of that, it's that concept of, you know, where it's almost a bit about the masculine energy in our culture, in not just in the UK culture, but that's like a worldwide thing, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
that masculine energy, but also that sense of, you know, the father's not gonna do right, and how's the son gonna get stuff proper? And it almost talks a bit about the kind of, you know, having to bring that, you know, talking about like I guess it's like mother. There's a bit of a reference to the mother in the chorus as well. I'm trying to think of the bars now. It's like when I'm put on the spot, I'm really rubbish with my bars. But it's talking about the sense of, you know, all the killing and all the kind of like masculine energy, and until we sort of get that kind of feminine balance in the mix. And I think about society in a different way that we're kind of doing at the moment, and things are just going to stay the same. And I suppose it's like looking at all the, I don't know, there's references in there talking about, you know, we've got immigrants waving away immigrants, because you're thinking about, well, all these lands have been turned over by different cultures and different societies. So who who are people who've come and invaded our land, who were French and Norwegian and all this, to say that these people now can't come and stay in this land? Do you know what I mean? And who are these people to go to America as immigrants and then tell the immigrants they can't have their land and stay in their land? Do you know what I mean? So got all these reference about that, and it talks obviously about, you know, some cliche things around corporations. I suppose it's looking at the Americanization of Britain as well, because it's funny how we kind of colonized America, but now America is kind of influencing us in who we are, and how we kind of like act, and who our loyalties to. So it's just kind of this sort of, there's a bit of a father and son relationship there, isn't there, if you think about it, in the UK. So yeah, I think there's just a lot. I was talking a little bit about the mental health model as well, because I'm in counselling and psychotherapy and stuff, and see a lot of, I don't disagree that there needs to be some standardization for mental health and that people, but I feel that the mental health model is just about making money. So there was a lot of references in there talking about like diagnosis, and it's all about statistics rather than well-being.
I mean, you have said that your music right through your life has helped with your own mental health. Can you expand a bit on that?
Yeah, I guess about like, I guess making sense of things that have been traumatic in my life, whether it's been, I wrote a track, Nazi, which was talking about an assault that happened when I was like 15. I got quite badly assaulted by the BNP. And there was a few other tracks that I've written that about, I think even in the Fugazi Rum early stuff, there's a lot of stuff talking about what it's like to grow up in a kind of a very white town, when I was like one of the only of maybe two. There was probably there was a mixed race guy, and there was myself, and then it was just the people, and then the Chinese, and that was kind of the whole cultural sort of, what the word I'm looking for, difference in the space. Everyone else was just like white. So I kind of used art to kind of make sense of some of what I've experienced. And I was so angry when I was young. I think the art really helped me to just express that anger, maybe in a bit of a healthier way than like ever just fighting or doing whatever. So and also I think it's just been very helpful for my own like academic growth, because it's helped me to think that, you know, books and learning is important, which I wasn't into. Like, I left school with basically no grades. I used F's and a D at the most. And I kind of wrote myself off. So education come through art, through kind of, you know, wanting to read more literature, and wanting to improve the way I was writing. So yeah, I think it's given me a lot of like life experience, and certainly a lot of self-reflection and a lot of self-process through kind of, this is what I've been going through, and it will come out in my songs, and a lot of traumatic events coming out in my songs, like and I think you can see that, maybe hear that, see that.
Yeah. And then, you know, that goes on to help others who, to not just understand yourself, but to understand their situation too.
Yeah, I mean, some of that's the hope. I think the important thing is, I think at some point you get a bit righteous and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to save people with my music. And I think the reality is everyone just needs to work out their own journey. But if somebody's other person gives them a bit of validation and they can relate to that, and that's cool already, you know? So yeah, I think I had that at some point where I think in the middle of my art, and even towards some of the end of it, it was like, I mean, it's a little bit preachy sometimes, I guess, but I feel like I've got a better balance with what I'm talking about now, and it's less sort of like it's more just a bit introspective and a bit reflective, and trying to be a bit more kind of what's it about, and just shining a light on, rather than to like, oh, we should be doing this and FDs. It's just kind of like naming some things, I guess.
But I mean, it's fed into your working life as well. Is that right? You're counselling yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in. I've done training when I started. When I moved to Edinburgh in my early 30s. Well, yeah, I was 30 when I moved to Edinburgh, so I'd done some training, and for 4 years, and I think I had a year break, so years, and then after after my training, I got into work straight away. So I've been working now for, say, well, it would be 6 years, but I had a year and a bit out. So it's about 5 years. Like I've had experience as a therapist now, and I guess, like I say, with the art, it's been a bit of an extension of, like, I've been through a lot, and through that, I kind of had some therapy. I've read a lot of self-help books, and I was just interested in I was interested in philosophy, interested in that kind of psychological way of looking at things. And yeah, and then I just kind of thought, this is quite similar. They're different things, but they support each other. They have a kind of connection in some way that work well together. So music workshops also come out of that. Like, I ended up doing a lot of youth work for quite a few years, like over 10 years of youth work with music as well, doing writing workshops. And I guess, like you say, helping people to go, well, you can use writing to help to work out some of this crap that you're going through, and it can be quite fun. And socially, you can learn a lot about yourself, but also you can connect with people and have some fun. And you know what I mean? And I think, like, especially if you do some gigs and play some, it's good.
Which kind of makes me think about the last year, when everything has been so different to what went before. Have you found that, making music and making connections through music has been a help? And because it seems to have been for other people.
Yeah, I think the lockdown, I've made a lot of music over the lockdown, and uh, it's, yeah, I think it's helped to have a focus. I think it's always good to have a focus if you're doing something that you like. I mean, cooking's been a huge help through that as well. I've been cooking a lot. I was kind of working a little bit as a commis chef before the lockdown got serious, just part time. But then that kind of ended.
Yeah.
But yeah, just in general, I was just like enjoying it more. I was like, this is about me and my music, and it's not about. I'm glad it kind of took away all that having to be out and having to be someone for someone else, or not that I think to be. I think if you're in the music scene, that um there's a bit of emphasis on kind of releasing music, and what you're releasing, who you're doing stuff with, and yeah, I just think there's a lot of like things like Spotify and how the music industry's gone. It's very hard for people to make money out of music these days. I think you need to be quite business minded, clever and a bit shrewd. And I'm not like I'm not business minded, but I realize the more that I do it, it's not about that for me. Like I've actually got a job, I've got a career, and I'm happy. And if someone was like, leave your job and tour the world and be an artist, I'd probably be saying, like, nah. I'd probably go, I'm up for doing like a tour here and there. I want to do my job. I love it, So it's not.
That's really interesting. It's almost like a reset of expectations, perhaps, as from when people, think, I'm going to make music and I'm going to do this, and eventually I'll be, whatever a star might be. But now there's maybe a reset of what the realities are. What are the practicalities and realities for you for for making music? You mentioned earlier on about, you know, hitting the bathroom wall to get the kind of sound. Now you might just get, you know, a sample of that. You wouldn't even have to do it yourself. It's probably there.
Yeah, I've never really had time to do the production side because I've always, I actually sort of either been the writer or I've always done the kind of the networking and the promotion. So I kind of fell into that a bit more. And so like putting together projects and, you know, if you look at anything that comes out content wise on from like Hold Records, which is kind of releasing platform we run, like anything that's done on that is normally organized and done by myself, or I'll get someone to do it on behalf, you know, whether it's like, but a lot of it comes down to kind of the video concepts and look of things, how everything's kind of working is like normally because I've done it. So, and the promotion and the networking is sort of something that I've been doing for a long time, and I haven't had chance to be a producer as well as a writer, and you know, there's just so many things you can hold. So yeah, it's a bit like that, I guess. So when it comes down to it, I just focus on writing lyrics. I do record my own lyrics, and I've bought a decent mic to do that. I just try and keep quality as high as possible on the shoestring that I've got. I mean, I'm not like before I wasn't earning that much at all. Now, now I am earning, now I'm earning okay money, not great money, but how much it costs to put out music and what you get back from it nowadays completely different. Because I think back in the day, like when we released the Fugazi Rum stuff, we got I think 500 presses like done, and so we sold about 1,000 CDs at a tenner a pop. You know what I mean? So that's like, and we had merchandise and T-shirts and all sorts, and we were selling that really easy. And I'm not saying nowadays you can still sell T-shirts and that, but when you're not gigging, you can't do all that stuff. And CDs nowadays, no one has a CD player. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of barriers for the way that the music is gone for artists to make back their money. And I'm not saying there isn't ways to do that, but there's probably a small percentage of artists that are really, you know, making money, and there's a lot of artists pretending that they're making. I'll tell you now where I seem to make money is I get like paid for features. I get paid for, I've been doing some writing for some games, some video games. I've done 3 tracks for some video game, which I don't know because the guy who's writing the stuff is contractual and he can't tell me what it's for. But I know it's for an independent, and it's probably a bit of a bigger budget than the low end independent. So, but I've written 3 tracks for that game, and you know that'll be out sometime next year, I guess. But yeah, so there's bits and bobs that I'm starting to get money from, and I just invest that straight into my art, you know.
Yeah. So you mean you've say you've been up in Scotland for a while? Were you aware of a kind of Scottish hip hop before you came up, or?
It was hard to find, you know, because when I was Googling it, I found people like Hector Berserk and I think Stanley Odd, like these kind of the first people that I come across. But the actual scene itself, I found it was really, really hidden. And I think in the end, I ended up finding about Bristow Battles, and I ended up finding out about Bristow Battles through, it was like a friend of a friend who working at a youth organization, and her friend knew this person that was actually involved with something with the event. I ended up going down to that, and that's when I met a lot. That's when I met Strong Tone, and I met Louis. Gas was there. Like everyone from the scene was there actually, and Word. That's where I met Word, and I ended up getting, because I went down there and I didn't know what anyone was about, and someone had dropped out and they were looking for someone to do a freestyle battle. And I'm not even a battle rapper, but I was like, oh yeah, I'll do it. I thought it would just be a couple of boys and it would just be a laugh and it would be low key. But then And then the guys are coming up to me and going, "Oh, you're battling Gasp. He's a monster." And I'm just like, "Oh my God, what have I got myself into?" And it was, like Gasp is like one of the, he's still one of the, some of the best one of the best battlers in Scotland. He's up there with the top tier battlers, and I'm not a battle MC. So that was a really unwelcome match, but it was fun. I'd done it, got my ass handed to me, and then after that, I think a couple of the people from the thing had hit me up on Facebook or somewhere, and I ended up going to Words and doing a track called Breakthrough, and then we started writing some bits, and I started doing some stuff with the SOS Collective.
Yeah.
And I'm still friends with these boys now. I don't write as much music with them. I think, like, in terms of, like, they're good at what they do, but in terms of stuff that I'm doing, I think it's just different, and I quite like to keep my stuff separate. And I still feature with the guys here and there. But yeah, I feel like now, like you said before, when you've been on everyone else's agenda for so long, you just get to that point where you're like, actually, this is what I want to really be doing, and this is how I want to be doing it, and I don't want to compromise that. And
Sure.
I think that's kind of what's happened with the last album and this single and all the stuff that I'm releasing now. This is more about me and my art rather than other people and what they wanted me to be and how they thought it'd be as well. So
That's really interesting, because I think it shows that there are pros and cons of kind of a community like that. You can find yourself maybe trying to fulfill roles that's not the one that you want to go down, I suppose.
yeah, and I think I don't get me wrong, I don't regret any of like the work I've done. Quite a few years work with the band Monosapiens, and I think again it was great, good really working with the boys, made some great live shows, supported really cool people. We smashed the live scene. We were smashing it, like it was so good, and I appreciate all the experience that I've got from working in bands. Like I've created bands like the Urban Folk Crowd. It was a bit of a flash in the pan, but it was just a really nice project. I went down the folk hip hop route with that band, and but yeah, I think you learn a lot from the process of writing music, creating music, and there's things on unconscious and conscious levels that you up, and then when you take that knowledge and bring it back to like a structure like hip hop, you tend to have a lot more thought of what things should be and how things could be better. Like, and but I think the level of music nowadays is so high. Like the young guys coming through, they're just really on it. They just know what it's about, and they've been doing it. Where I started when I was about 14, 15, some of those guys have been doing it since they're probably like 7 or 8 or younger. Do you know what I mean? Coming up into it because it's so much more wider now.
So what's next for you? What's next in the agenda?
In terms of, I think I've been prolific so I've got a stack of things that I'm trying to just at various stages, like everything's recorded. I just need to get one project mixed mastered, and then I've got um, a remix album for Lost Roots, which is sounding incredible. Like it's so good. I'm like, I think, I'm not saying that it's better than the original, but it's definitely on par. It's not all the tracks, there's 10 tracks on the remix album and there'll be no skits. And then I've got at least 2 EPs. No, I've got 3 EPs. And I've got a couple of singles, but I've got a lot of feature tracks as well. And they're not even, so there's quite a lot of stuff that's going to be dropping this year. And the plan is to write a new LP with Mert, who's True Note so we're going to do another follow-up album for next year. Hopefully it'll be next year or not long after. And just a few little things, but I do want to try and get a bit of space from writing after that and releasing constantly. I want to kind of maybe slow things down, release a project every maybe 2 years, drop a couple of singles here and there, but just kind of, I'd rather release like 8 just really dope tracks, a nice concept, really tight, than releasing lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. Like it's too expensive and it's too tiring. Like, and I want more space to live life in different ways, you know.
Well, Conscious Root, thank you so much for taking time to have a chat with me today. It's been fascinating.
No worries, man. I really appreciate your support and actually your interest in and big up yourself as well for your interest in supporting, you know, BAME. I hate that word actually. You know, the Black Afro-American whatever, but also like LGBTI community. It's just really nice to have people reach out to want to kind of people, because I feel like there's a lot of minorities that don't get as well supported in certain radio, just because it's like Black African music and stuff like that. Especially in Scotland, it can be very like it's either the only Black music that gets really supported is dub. I think the rest of it's quite. I think it's changed now on BBC introducing, but it's very like, you know, like white rock band, that kind of mentality up here. Just nice to see other smaller stations and other people represent that sound, and those people. So many voices that want to be heard, so much quality as well. It saddens me that there's not enough that those people connecting and getting played further.
Yeah. Oh, no, I absolutely agree. I think if you want to call, you know, talk about a nation's music, all the voices have to be heard. That's
yeah. And there's a lot of like, that's what I mean. There's a lot of like white young people that really relate to that, you know, cultural sound, and they're really repping it very well. And it'd just be nice that they get a bit of props for what they're doing, and not just from their mates, like on a national platform, because I think there's so much young talent on the rap scene coming up in Scotland that people really need to, you know, embrace it and stop sticking their nose up because it doesn't sound like a London accent, because it's actually very good. It's really skillful, and actually outside like the UK, I know people are embracing it and have been for many years. So I'm hopefully going to grow. Like, I've always been supporting it. It took me a while, I must admit, in the beginning to get used to that dialect sound. But once I got past that thing, I was just like, this stuff is great. Like people back in the day, like Hector Berserk and Mad Hat, Stanley Odd, and now, but nowadays there was maybe a few heads that were really killing it. But nowadays there's so many people, so much talent. So good.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much out there to explore and find out for yourself. And hopefully we encourage you to people, listeners, to do that. So
yeah, cool.
Again. Hopefully,
no worries, man.
Cheers,
cool.
then. And we'll be back soon with someone completely different. Cheers.